Whoa, whoa. Hey, the Blade's a fun ride, but it's even more fun once you've assembled it. I'm Rob, and this is how you assemble the Blade 2.0. You don't need much to assemble your Blade. First thing we want to do is take it out of the box. I've got a box knife for that. You can use scissors, a precision shiv, whatever you've got. Now we want to be careful opening the box because there are staples here. If you ordered the touring package, you'll have some extra goodies in here, like the fender. Put that aside for now. We've got the seat zip tied in here. We want to cut those out. A few ways to get the bike out of the box. If you're alone and you want to go easy on yourself, you can cut the sides of the box out and just lay the side of the box down. If you've got a box knife, and just pull the bike out. It's the easiest way. If you're like me and you want a challenge, you can try and lift the bike out yourself, or you can have a friend help you lift it out of the box, but don't hurt yourself trying to do this. Ah! There we go. So want to gently set this bike down. That's how you do it. Now you've got your bike out of the box and an empty box that you can use to throw all the packaging stuff in here. It's a nice little way to keep things neat. There we go. We're gonna need some tools for the next part. So I've got the box that we pulled out from earlier. Let's see what we've got in here. All right, we've got, if you ordered the touring package, the phone mount in here. We've got fun pedals. They are literally very fun. This is the display. We'll put that on later. And lastly, a bag of tools. We've got some Allen wrenches, some crescent wrenches. We've got some manuals and tools to assemble your bike. We're gonna keep unpacking this bike with our goal of getting these handlebars and the front wheel on as soon as possible. Once you do that, you can throw the bike on the kickstand and it makes your job a lot easier. Now that we're working so close to the bike, be very careful not to put your knife into the tire or scratch the paint of the bike. It's too beautiful to scratch up until you hit the trail. We'll set this wheel to the side for now. Don't need it yet. Now we want to get this handlebar on. You'll need a 5mm Allen key for this. And we're just going to remove the bolts from the stem plate here on the stem, which is what holds your handlebars in. That's a beautiful stem. This is a Spank stem. They make really good stuff. Now I find the easiest way to do this, I like to put the bolts back in the stem plate. They're just kind of resting there, right? Gravity holds them in. The next thing we're going to do is take these handlebars and make sure you kind of rotate them around and get the angle correctly on here. That keeps my front brake line the straightest. Okay, you've also got this light here. This is a really important step here. We're gonna put the light on here, but first we'll take that stem plate and get the top two bolts just finger tight. Now we're gonna take this light and there's a handy little bracket. We'll slide that in. This goes between the stem plate and the stem. So we'll slide that in there. And we'll get these bolts in finger tight just so everything's in the right place. We'll follow it up with the tool. All right, everything's finger tight. Do not ride the bike like this. Now we're really gonna line these handlebars up because this is when we tighten things down. So you wanna get this to your liking. Pay special attention to the brake angle. I like mine down at about a 15-degree angle here. That's really comfortable for me. You do what works best for you. Okay, you've also got these lines here. Be sure those are centered in the stem. And now we'll start tightening this thing up. I like to do kind of a figure 8 pattern. So I'll get one of these kind of tight, a couple turns here, and then diagonal from that. A couple turns, diagonal again. And that way they're evenly tight as you go through this. You don't want one to be super tight and the other's loose. This kind of keeps them even. So now we're gonna put the wheel on. This is super simple. There's a few steps. We do have these plastic protectors on the wheel. This is to stop it from damaging your bike in shipment. They're really in there. Oh, that was so satisfying. Now, when you do pull these plastic protectors off, it's really important to make sure it hasn't pulled off part of the wheel, and this actually has for me. When you do pull these plastic pieces off, sometimes they're so tight that it can pull apart the bearing cap of the wheel. So I've just pulled that off and I'm going to reinsert that. Please pay special attention to that and don't put this wheel on unless you have that bearing cap on the wheel. Same thing on the other side. This time the bearing cap did stay in. We're gonna make sure those are nice and tight in there. We'll set this wheel aside for just a second Now we're just gonna remove the axle from the fork. To do that, I'll kind of put the handlebars on my shoulder right here and loosen this. Lefty, loosey here. Once it's unscrewed, you can pull it out. I put a piece of paper down here to set the axle on. Now putting this front wheel on, it's so important that you get the rotor inside the disc brake calipers. It's easy to mess that up. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of stand here on top of the wheel and lift the bike up by the handlebars, pull that towards me, and that gives me a lot of control. There we go. There we go. The rotor's in, and the bike is just gently placed upon the axle. Now we're gonna keep control of the bike here, grab the axle, slide that in. Okay, you may have to play with the fork just a little bit, the placement, to get the axle to line up with the wheel. Once you've pushed the axle into the end, now we'll just gently screw it in until it stops. Okay, now that's all the way to the end, but you're not gonna be able to tighten it, so we'll back off just a little bit. And we wanna have this lever either facing up or a little bit to the rear. That's good. Congratulations if you made it this far, because now we can put this kickstand down. It just got a lot easier from here. Let's have some fun. I'm talking about pedals. These are the fun pedals that come with your blade. What's so important with these pedals is that you get the right pedal on the right side of the bike and left pedal on the left side. The reason is these are threaded in opposite directions so that when you're pedaling the bike, they're always tightening themselves. If you put these on the wrong sides, they're gonna be loosening themselves when you ride. There's an indicator on the pedal itself. It's kind of in here, right here. There's one that says L, that's the left pedal, and one that says R, that's the right pedal. So the left pedal is lefty-tighty. Normally it's righty-tighty, but left pedal is lefty-tighty. So we're gonna put this in here, and by hand, just start tightening that to the left. Once you have it in by hand, we're gonna take this 6mm Allen key, pull the pedal back here, and continue. Remember, it's lefty-tighty, so we're going that direction. Continue tightening that up with the long end of the key. Switch it to the short end, which gives you the most amount of torque. And really crank that in by hand. You want this to be tight, but not so tight that it's gonna like damage the thread. I'm putting about 20, 30 pounds of force on this right now. It's the same thing on the other side here, except we're going to the right. Another way to remember this is that you're always screwing towards the front of the bike. This one's righty-tighty. Now we're gonna stick the seat post in. So you've got the seat post clamp right here. Loosen that up. Slide this seat post in. Just get it to a height that you like. I like it about right here. And tighten that. Now, I can feel by hand that there's not a lot of pressure I'm using to clamp this down. That doesn't feel tight enough to me. So I'm just going to, there's a little nut on the other side of the seat clamp. I'll rotate that to the right about half a turn, test it. One more half turn. Now that's just right. You don't want to have to like stand on this thing to close it, right? But it should be tight enough so that your seat's not going to move when you're sitting on it. Next thing we're going to do is take that display box that we had earlier and take out the LCD display. You'll also need the smallest Allen key from the tool set. I believe it's a 2.5mm Allen key. What we're going to do is loosen these screws on the clamps here on this display and then put it on the bike. So taking the screws out, I like to keep them in my lips. That's just a thing I do. That's how I roll. You can put yours on the table or wherever. Handy for me to pull one out when I need it. I've also loosened up the side screws on this so I can pull the clamps to the back. That seems like it's gonna be a little bit easier to slide this on without flexing the clamps so much that they might break. Okay, we're gonna stretch this clamp out and slide it over the handlebar. There's one side and the other. Now you're gonna take your handy mouth screws, don't swallow them, and put them into the clamps. Once these clamps are tight, then we will tighten up the side screws again. The side screws, they are indexed, okay? So there's gonna be some angles that don't work when you tighten it. With these screws, we don't have to put a ton of force on them, right? I'm just putting a few pounds of pressure on each screw. It should feel tight, but not so tight, again, that it could break the plastic of the clamp. Next, we've got the button pad, and we're gonna play around with this a little bit, see how we can wrap it around the bars to kind of keep the wire nice. So I've done 2 wraps around the bar. I'm gonna pull the screw out and then pop that on the bar just like we did with the display clamp. Clamp this onto the handlebars. I'll turn it around so I can see where the screw goes. Pull the display back, and I'm gonna get the angle just right. I'll put my hands on here, feel. I want it down here. I also want it to not interfere with the throttle, okay? So I need a little bit of distance between the throttle and the buttons. I love this angle right here. So I'll get under the bike, find that screw, and tighten it the rest of the way by hand. The final step with the display here is I'll slide it kind of behind this light. The light does only come with the touring package version of the blade. And find the other side of the plug for the display. They're both green. Squeeze them together. I pulled some extra slack on this wire out. I'm just gonna slide that back in to make my bike about 10% sexier. If you got the Blade Standard, you're basically done right now. If you got the Blade Tour, I'm gonna show you how to put the other parts of this bike on, the smartphone mount and the fender, in just a second. But first, for everybody, what's really important here, I want you to write down your serial number. You can put it in the Notes app of your phone, write it on a piece of paper, stick it somewhere safe. God forbid, if anything happens to your bike, if somebody takes it someday, having that serial number is so important. You can file a police report. You can find the serial number right here on the head tube of the bike. It's right under the Superhuman logo. It's this series of number. Write that down now. We're gonna go through the whole bike and do a safety check. Make sure this thing is good to ride before you hop on it and go 35 miles per hour down the neighborhood. You're gonna make sure you did a good job on it. Make sure we'll touch both brakes here. I'm going full forward force. Okay, it's grabbing really well. Full backwards. This is my full weight on the bike, okay? These brakes are very, very strong hydraulic disc brakes. We're checking that the grips are tight, the handlebars are tight. I'm pushing my foot against the wheel and giving it some pressure here. Okay, it's not moving. I'll grab the front brake and go forwards and backwards here. Okay, that looks good to me. Shock is working. Looks good. Pedals look good. They rotate freely, nothing's bent. Okay, this rear rack, if you have the touring package, there's nothing loose there. I'll physically touch like every screw on this bike and make sure there's no play, it's not loose. We do have excellent quality control at the factory, but remember, they're humans doing these jobs and humans can mess up every once in a while. So we just want to double check everything because your life is very important to us. Final thing I'll check here is I'll just lift the front of the bike, spin that wheel, everything's straight. I don't hear like a crazy disc brake rub. Every once in a while, the disc can get deformed in shipping. I'll do the same thing in the back. Ready to ride. So now let's turn your bike on, and I'm gonna show you a couple of cool things. Hold the power button here for 3 seconds, and the display will turn on. This is your speedometer. This is your pedal assist level. We're in level 1 here. Eco, that's eco mode, which is a mode that will save you a lot of battery. I like to ride it in sport mode. To get into that, we hold the plus button for 2 seconds. Now it shifts into sport mode. So plus button again, back to eco. You can set that in your display settings. And the first thing I want you to do is set your clock, okay? So right now it is 8:47 a.m. I'll hit the info button 1, 2, 3 times. Go down here to where it says set clock. Hit the I button. Hit the I button again. Go to 8, okay? It's just like setting the clock on your microwave. In here you can also change your default mode. If you like default to be in sport mode, navigate up to there, hit the I button, change that to sport, and now we're done. There's some other settings in here. I wouldn't recommend messing with a lot of these, so we'll just back out of this, One more thing I will change though is the speed limit. Because I'm using this for off-road use only, okay, I'm gonna change the speed limit from 27.9 miles per hour to 67 miles per hour, okay? That fits my riding style. We'll exit out of this, and now we're ready to use this bike. If you don't have the touring package, that's about it. Your blade is assembled. A couple other things, you do have a throttle on the left side of this bike. If you want to make it like a certain class, you can always remove the throttle to use it, right? It's always active when the bike is on. You just press on that throttle and it's ready to go. Shifting, what's really important with this roll-off shifter, this is a speed hub. That means you can shift it even from a stop into any gear, which is really cool. But it doesn't shift well under load, so you don't want to be like pedaling super hard and try and shift it. You back off a little bit on the pedals before you shift into the next gear. You just rotate this with your grip and you're ready to go. So let's take it for a little ride and I'll show you how to install those other touring package components in a second. So the smartphone mount has these adhesive rubber backings. We're gonna pull a couple of those off right now. Let's get some rubber in between the metal so it's not scratching your handlebars. Then we're gonna apply the rubber. So now just find a spot you like on the bike and we're gonna clamp this thing down. So I'm putting the screws in by hand and then we'll tighten them up with the Allen wrench in a sec. Now we got the Allen key to tighten these. Okay, once these are nice and tight, we'll just kind of test that. It's not moving anywhere. We're gonna throw the front fender on here first, which is this one. The little forks that come down inside the package. Got instructions on how to mount those. So how this works is you've got in the front these clamps that go onto the fork and then this screw that holds the fender onto the mount. So we'll just clamp those first ones in right now. Cool, so the clamp does have a zip tie holding this together. We're gonna loosen that with the flathead coming in clutch. We'll wrap this around the fork. Slide that strap back in through here. We'll slide that plastic screw back in here, tighten it up by hand with the screwdriver. Now as we tighten it, it is clamping down this strap on the fork. Okay, I'll do that on the other side too, same thing. I took the screw out here. Now I'm going to put the fender on and tighten this by hand. We'll make some finer adjustments in a second. It's at an angle I like, but I'm going to move the clamps here to adjust how that fender rides. I'll put about a ½ inch of space between the wheel and the fender, and I can check it by lifting this bike up, rotating the wheel, make sure there's gonna be no rubbing, play with the ankles, get it just right for you, and then we'll tighten that thing down. Crank down on that, a couple pounds of pressure is plenty here at both sides. Next, we've got the rear fender, so we've got this clamp here, we've got this attachment piece. Okay, so we're gonna pull the screw out of the attachment piece. We're gonna put the attachment piece in here. It should work either direction here. We'll put both square sides of this attachment piece in. Slide the other square piece in here. Got our tool and we are just tightening this screw most of the way. Okay, we want it a little loose so that we're still gonna be able to make some adjustments on it. Now we loosen this clamp. It's just like the seat post clamp. Loosen it enough to open the clamp. We're gonna slide the fender back here. Okay. Open this clamp up enough so that you can slide it over here. Okay, now we'll just tighten it. Once it's nice and tight, we'll just pop that right there. And look at that, I got the angle right. The only thing is, this isn't tight yet, okay? We're gonna have to make our fine adjustments here and tighten this up. So I'm gonna loosen the back nut here just a little bit so that I can make some fine adjustments. And then I'm gonna tighten this other one up right here. Putting some decent pressure on that screw, okay? That fender is really secure. It's not really going anywhere. I've seen some people use zip ties. We do have some extra zip ties in the kit to kind of secure this to the rack if you're doing some like crazy riding and you're gonna be slapping a lot. I don't think I need that. Mine's real stiff. It'll stay up no matter how long I ride. That's it for this assembly video. As always, our lawyers recommend that we tell you should have a professional assemble this or a professional look at your assembly just in case you messed up really bad. So if you get hurt, you don't come to us and sue us and put us out of business. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Leave any questions below if there's something we didn't cover well in this video, and keep an eye out for the next one. In the meantime, enjoy the ride, baby. Whoa!